Hey guys, it's Drac, and as promised I'm going to be trying to do a mod on the Nerf Mega Thunderbow. I'm not sure how much room for a mod we're going to have, so without any more talking about it, I'm just going to take it apart and we'll see what kind of internals we're working with. Alright guys, so good news first. Opening the Mega Bow is really easy. They're all the same size Phillips head screw, and you just loosen them, including the ones on the handle, and remove it off. These pieces don't come apart quite yet. You have to loosen some things inside. Now, once you're inside the Mega Bow, the news gets bad. There's a ton of moving parts, a lot of heavy return springs. These bow arms are doing much more than I initially gave them credit for, and hats off to the Nerf engineers. This is very impressive right off the bat. I do not know the stress tolerances of this gearbox, so I would recommend not taking this blaster apart and modding it unless you would consider yourself to be advanced. That said, I'm going to finish the mod guide, take the blaster apart, and see if I can't figure it out, and hopefully it's not as bad as it looks at first. So at this point, I'd like to point out two things. One, everything in here seems very well greased in my model, which means that there's really no reason I can think of to take this apart for like regular maintenance, unless you have intentions of doing something with your plunger. Alright, so this piece, this orange cage for the gears, comes off. Then it's important to remove everything in order and remember how it goes. If you can't remember how it goes, watch this segment. It'll kind of play through it. So this screw goes into this hole and connects this gear to this gear. So screw comes out, piece lifts off, then this gear comes off. This post is going to come out with it. Don't worry about that. Just keep it with it. This red piece teases out. It's part of the priming mechanism, and it kind of fits underneath the green piece and into here, and it has teeth connecting both of these two gears. Then this gear comes up, then you have access to removing this gear. I'm not entirely sure if it's necessary to remove this one, but you could if you wanted. Pull this pin and remove this. And then this comes off, and you're more or less at your plunger tube at this point. I'm going to keep going because at this point it's more or less in there now. The blaster is in pieces. This rod down here comes up through here and attaches into this hole on this piece, which then you can see where I just took it off, I think. Anyway, this piece fits into here, and then there was a screw holding them together, so it's a separate kind of post, but it helps with the retraction. So I'm going to try and get at this plunger tube. The plunger tube looks massive, and if this video accomplishes nothing else, it proves that the air restrictor system is in fact the smart air restrictor system, where all of the plungers are connected to, or the one plunger is connected to all of the barrels, and it decides from top to bottom if there is a dart and then fires. But I'm going to keep going and try to knock out this plunger tube, see if there's anything that we can do in terms of a spring upgrade. So the plunger housing is interesting for a plethora of reasons. One, there is a secondary screw here designed exclusively to keep this at a tilt, and it does so because when you prime the blaster and it's in the shell, there's a stop here which levels that out, and then it tilts in to get full compression. I'm not sure if that was something that they had to fix or if it's part of the design. I might just be too stupid to understand it. But once you pull the plunger housing out, which is held in by two of these small silver interior screws here and here, you can come into the back, as it does have an end cap, and remove these two screws, and then you can get at your entire plunger rod. Very simple, direct style plunger. Looks like it should not be too hard to add a spring, but man, is the spring in here powerful. So this might be an internal catch, and then the plunger rod itself is direct with a very, very loose O-ring. So there's definitely some room for improvement, which is good because I've already destroyed this blaster trying to figure that out. So at this point, there are two things that I want to point out. One, I have not fooled with this spring because it's crazy powerful, and I did add a second O-ring, and that made the seal a little bit better. I doubt it's going to have a large impact on the performance with all this dead space, but I did it. And then I wanted to point out that I have a more or less complete understanding of how the bow functions, and I want to share that with you. So pulling the arms back activates the gear train in here, which pulls this piece back so far that it catches, and then when the gears are returning and this bow arm returns, it pushes this piece here forward, and that acts as this trigger mechanism of a sort. So that's how we're getting Springer type power out of a bow type blaster. It has a full catch and release, and I think that that's really neat. You'll notice that when you're playing with it the first time, that no matter how far you have it drawn back, it's when you release that you fire, because the mechanism here has to pull forward to release this catch. All in all, the bow is really, really cool. I look forward to putting it back together, and that might be a little bit of a challenge. This is a quick segment just saying that the blaster wasn't as difficult to get back together as I thought that it would be. All of the gears are really intuitive, and there aren't that many pieces when you get down to it. And as long as you remember to put all of your screws back in order where you took them out, and I will admit that that can be a little bit tricky. There's no shame in watching this video. I had to watch my other segment to get it back together, and it was certainly very, very helpful. It speeded up the process. But the blaster's internals are back together. Tease the bow arms in last. They have a tendency to pop out of place and try and mess with this running rod. Do that very last part before you put the blaster back together, and I'll show you what it looks like. I did a surprise paint job on this one. Hey guys, so the bow is back together. I've painted it. It's just started raining. I've painted it blue with kind of a silver misting on a black base coat, and I think I'm going to call it like the Galaxy Bow or something. I haven't done any detailing yet because this is just the modification guide, but I wasn't worried about painting the orange tip or anything because it definitely still looks like a toy. Looks like it's raining, but I'm just going to prove the blaster's performance has not improved at all. I think that the accuracy, nothing has changed by adapting that seal. I'm sure you could toss a stronger spring in here, but it is so difficult to get that gear train to support any sort of extra pressure that I feel like this is one that's just best left stock. The only reason I can think of to take it apart is if you yourself were interested in doing a really clean paint job like this. I wouldn't recommend painting the bow arms, but there it is. That is my mod guide for the Thunderbow. It's now the Galaxy Bow, and as always, oh man, thanks for watching.